All right, we're gonna do diagonal pattern extension. So Sarah's gonna stand on that band with the opposite foot. She's gonna start in her pocket with her thumb facing her hip. She's gonna rotate her arm up, push her thumb back behind her, and then slowly bring her arm back down towards her pocket again. All right, we're gonna do diagonal pattern flexion now. So what Sarah's gonna do, she's gonna start with her arm at about a 45-degree angle, elbow a little bit bent, and she's gonna bring that hand down into her pocket and then slowly control the band as she brings it back over her head again. The next exercise we're going to do are shoulder external rotations at a 0 degree of shoulder flexion. So Sarah's elbow is going to be tucked in nice and tight at her waist. She's going to hold her arm in front of her palm facing into her body, and she's going to slowly rotate her hands away, good, and then slowly towards, only moving from her shoulder joint, okay? So she's not just trying to extend from her wrist. She's not rotating her whole upper body. It's only the shoulder that's moving. Once she can't move anymore, going back towards her body nice and slow again. Now we're gonna have Sarah do some internal rotations for her shoulder. So same positioning where her elbow is bent, nice and tight towards her body. And she's going to bring her palm towards her stomach, and then slowly resisting against the band to bring her arm back to that starting position. Now we're going to do shoulder external rotations at a 90-degree angle at her shoulder. So she's going to lift her elbow up so her arm is parallel with the ground, and then rotating her hand back towards mine. Good, slowly lowering down. So she doesn't want her elbow to drop here, okay? We want to keep our arm at that 90-degree angle. Again, we don't want just wrist movement, we want it from the shoulder, and we don't want to arch from our lower back. Next exercise is shoulder abduction. So Sarah's gonna lift her arm straight out to the side with her thumb pointed up towards the ceiling, just to a 90-degree angle, and then slowly lowering back down again. Okay, we don't wanna see her shifting her weight away from the weight. We want everything up nice and tall, just moving from her shoulder. Now we're gonna do shoulder scaption. So we're gonna keep our thumb pointed straight up, and then at about a 45-degree angle away from our body, so almost like we're trying to make the letter V, we're gonna lift our arm up just to the level of our shoulder, and then slowly back down again. This exercise is side lying external rotation. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a small towel, roll it up, and place it right underneath Sarah's elbow. She's going to take a weight in her hand, keeping her elbow tucked in at her side, starting with her hand at her stomach, slowly rotating up towards the ceiling, and then slowly back down. What we want her focusing on is keeping her shoulder blade squeezed back and rotating from her shoulder, not just lifting up through her wrist. Perfect. This exercise is prone horizontal abduction. So what Sarah's going to do is lay completely flat on her stomach, let her arm drop off the side of the table holding a light weight. Starting by squeezing her shoulder blade, she's going to lift her arm out to the side, parallel with the ground, and then slowly lowering down to the ground again. Just keeping her elbow nice and straight and keeping her back in a nice alignment here. So this exercise is prone horizontal abduction, but now in full external rotation of the shoulder, which basically means Sarah's going to keep her thumb up pointing towards the ceiling as she does this exercise. So same as before, thumb up, lifting the arm up, squeezing from the shoulder blade, slowly lowering down. Be sure not to use momentum as you do this exercise, really engaging the muscles in your upper back. This exercise is a prone row. What Sarah's going to do is lay right on her stomach here, starting with her elbow nice and straight. She's going to bend her elbow up towards the ceiling by squeezing from her shoulder blade and then slowly lowering her arm back down towards the floor again. Good, nice and slow on the way up. Perfect. This exercise is a prone row into external rotation. So what Sarah's going to do is she's going to bring her elbow straight out to the side, keeping her elbow bent, rowing up, keeping her arm parallel with the ground and even with her body, rotating up towards my hand, slowly back down, and then bringing the whole arm back down again. So lifting up, squeezing the shoulder blade, good, rotating up towards the ceiling, slowly back down and back down. So a common mistake that people make with this exercise is as they lift up, they start to lose this elbow, it starts to drop as they start to rotate their arm. So make sure you're really bringing the elbow all the way up, leaving it here as you rotate, come back down and lower. This exercise is a seated press up. What Sarah's going to do is place both of her hands on the chair with her fingers pointed out. From this position, she's going to push into the arms of the chair, straighten out her elbows, and then slowly lower herself back down again. She's going to hold it for about 2 seconds up at the top, and then slowly lower for about 2 seconds to control on the way down. This exercise is a push-up. Sarah is going to get onto her hands and her feet, keeping her shoulders above her wrists, her heels above her toes. She's going to slowly lower her whole body at the same time and then press herself straight up. Okay, what we don't want to see is her lower back arching, her butt coming up in the air, okay, or just kind of doing a little turtle move where we're just sticking our head down towards the floor. This exercise is a bicep curl. What Sarah's going to do is start with her arm down at her side with her palm facing her. She's going to start bending her elbow, and as she does, slowly turn her palm up towards the ceiling, reaching her hand as far as she can towards her shoulder, slowly lowering back down, and again turning her palm in, facing her. exercise is elbow extension or an overhead tricep press. So what Sarah's going to do is she's going to lift her arm up over her head. With her other hand, she's going to stabilize to keep her arm where it is. She's going to slowly bend her elbow to bring the weight behind her, and then using her tricep muscle, squeezing to straighten back out again. So what we want to be careful of is not letting that elbow dip and bend forward. We want to keep that straight up above our head as best we can, so that way our wrist, elbow, shoulder, and hip are all in a nice straight line. This exercise is wrist flexion and wrist extension. So we are going to start with wrist flexion. Sarah's going to start with her palm facing up towards the ceiling. From this position, she's slowly going to flex, so bending her hand up towards her, slowly lowering the weight, nice and controlled, back down. Her arm is nice and supported, either on the armrest, on the table. You can even use a foam roller for this, so that way you're only moving from the wrist joint, not from anywhere else. For wrist extension, Sarah's going to flip her hand over the other way, so her palm is now facing down. She's going to do the same thing where she lifts her palm or her hand up towards the ceiling, slowly lowers it back down again, and now we're just working the opposite side of our forearm. These exercises are pronation and supination. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you two ways to do these two exercises. The first way is using a hammer. So what Sarah can do is hold on to that hammer. The further down you hold, away from the top of it, the harder the exercise will be. If it's feeling too hard, you just move your hand back up. What she's going to do is bring her palm slowly facing down, and then slowly bringing her palm facing back up towards the ceiling again. So it should take her about 2 seconds to go from the neutral position, so right in the middle, bringing the hammer out to the side, back to the middle, and the other way again. Now, if you don't have a hammer handy, what you can always do is hold the bottom part of a weight. So using the top part of the dumbbell as that resistance, and just bringing her palm up and bringing the palm down.